Hi guys, so today we're going to be looking at proportional relationships again, and the reason is because I want to make sure that for 8th grade your graphing skills are on point. So let's go ahead and look at this first equation, y equals 2x, and we need to graph this line. And to do that, we are going to pick different x values, and it's always easy to go with 0, 1, and 2. And that basically means that we're going to take y equals 2x, and in place of the x, we're going to substitute these numbers here on our x column. So how does that look? So for example, at x equals 0, I'm going to replace my x with 0. And I'm going to do that by writing parentheses around my 0. 2 times 0 is 0. And I get y equals 0. So this point is going to be 0, 0. So my point ends up being 0, 0. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that on my graph. All right, let's do another one. Let's go ahead and do x equals 1. So x equals 1, y equals 2 times x. That is my equation, my original equation here. So y equals 2 times parentheses 1. 2 times 1 is 2, so y equals 2. So when x is equal to 1, y equals 2. So my point is 1, 2. So on my graph, I'm going to go to 1, and then I'm going to go up 2. All right, I still have one more. I have when x equals 2. So when x equals 2, y 2x, I'm going to go ahead and substitute in 2 for x. So y equals 2 times 2. Y equals 2 times 2 is 4. So I get 4 up here. So my coordinate point is now 2, 4. So when I graph that, 2, 4, it's going to look like that. And you can already see the line kind of forming. So then I'm going to go ahead and draw it out. And it's going to look like this. Okay? So now let's go ahead and try another problem. Now we have the equation y equals 4x. Once again, I'm going to pick easy numbers, 0, 1, and 2. I'm going to first substitute in x equals 0. So x equals 0 I'm going to substitute that, oopsies. So when x equals 0, I'm going to substitute that for the equation y equals 4x. So y equals 4. X is now 0. So I'm going to substitute it in. So y equals 4 times 0 is 0. So when x equals 0, we get that y equals 0. So my coordinate point is 0, 0. So when I graph that, it's going to look like this right here. Okay, I'm going to draw a line and pick a different color. When x equals 1, once again, I'm substituting into that same equation up here. Y equals 4 parentheses 1 because x now equals 1. Okay, so 4 times 1 is 4. So when x equals 1, we get that y equals 4. So our coordinate point is 1, 4. So I'm going to go to 1 on my x-axis and then go up 4, and that puts me right here. All right, now what about when x equals 2? So when x equals 2, y equals 4 times x. So we're going to substitute in 2 for x. So I get y equals 4 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8, so y equals 8. So when x equals 2, we get that y equals 8. So my point is 2, 8. So I'm going to go to 2 on my x-axis, and then I'm going to go up to 8. And now I can see my line forming, and I'm going to go ahead and pick a different color and connect those points. So my line's going to look something like that. And remember, lines keep going on and on and on forever. So usually we draw arrows on the ends. Okay, moving on to these graphs that now have fractions in them. So y equals 1/5 times x. With these, the numbers that I like to substitute in for x kind of change. I kind of like to go by the number in the denominator. So I still like to include 0 because 0 is always an easy number to multiply with. But then here I'm going to include 5 because in the denominator I have 5. And then from 5 I'm going to include 10 because 5 plus 5 is 10. Okay? So that's the reason why I picked these numbers. So when I substitute inside, let's go ahead and go with 0, x equals 0. My equation is going to go from y equals 1/5 times x to y equals 1/5 times 0. So remember when I had you guys practice multiplying fractions with integers, this is where it comes into place. So remember, we multiply by the numerator and then divide by the denominator. So y equals 0, or 1 times 0, which is 0. 0 divided by 5, that is still 0. Or you could have been like, well, anything times 0 is 0, so we could have skipped this step and been, all right, it's going to be 0. All right, so right here, I'm going to write 0, and that means that my point is going to be 0, 0. So then I'm going to graph it, 0, 0. And now let's try our next. So now I'm going to try out x equals 5. So x equals 5. I'm going to substitute it into that same equation. So y equals 1/5 times 5. So we're going to multiply our numerator with our integer. So 1 times 5 is 5. Keep our denominator. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So here, when x equals 5, I get that y equals 1. So my point is going to be 5, 1. So I'm going to go to my x-axis at 5, and then I'm going to go up 1. All right, let's try it one more time. This time, x is going to equal 10. So x equals 10. I have my equation y equals 1/5 x. Y equals 1/5. I'm going to substitute or replace the x with 10. Multiply our numerator with our integer, we get 10. Divide by our denominator, which is 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2, so y equals 2. So when x equals 10, y equals 2. So that means my new point is 10, 2. Let's go ahead and graph it. I'm going to go to my x-axis at 10 and then go up 2. So my point should be right there. Okay, and then I'm going to use a different color and connect these points. And that's how my line should look. All right. Did you hear my phone? One more, you guys. Try to do this one on your own. Or first, let's pick numbers, right? I always pick 0. And then I like to pick the number in the denominator when I have a fraction. So I have 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. So I'm going to put 6 in there. Okay, so go ahead and pause. See if you can find the points on your own. All right. So when x equals 0, I have y equals 1/3 x. I'm going to substitute in 0 for x. Anything times 0 is 0, so I get y equals 0. So my point's going to be 0, 0. And on my graph, it's going to be right there. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. I have to pick this pretty orange. So when x equals 3, I'm going to substitute into my equation 3 for x. So I'm going to replace that x with 3. And when we multiply with fractions, I multiply by the numerator. 1 times 3 is 3. Divide by our denominator, which is 3. 3 over 3 is 1. So my new point here is 3, 1. So on my graph, I'm going to go to my x-axis at 3 and then go up 1. So now x equals 6, and I'm going to substitute y equals 1/3 x. So I'm going to replace my x with 6. Y equals 1/3 times 6. Multiply by my numerator. So 1 times 6 is 6. Divide by my denominator. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So when x equals 6, my y equals 2. So my point's going to be 6, 2. So I'm going to go to 6 in my x-axis and then go up 2. I'm going to pick a different color and connect them to form my line. And that's it, you guys, okay? So when it comes to graphing lines that have a fraction, so when you're going to pick numbers to substitute in for x, I would pick numbers that are divisible by the number in your denominator.